The Sikha we will be learning is a look at the Sikha Chelik Chov Zayin, the Sikha for Chag Pesach. Before we actually start learning the Sikha inside, I want to give a little introduction, a little background. We all know that on Pesach night by the Seder, we drink four cases. We make Hagofan on each kos separately, and we also say different things connected to each kos. And just to read it, to make clear what it says, I'll read it from the Rambam, which is negay also to the Sikha. The Rebbe is going to quote it, but I'll just start the Rambam, not the Rambam the Rebbe starts the Sikha, but a different Rambam which the Rebbe brings within the Sikha, but I'll start with it. The Rambam Meperik Zayin, Halacha Yud of Hilchas Chometz Umatzah, the Rambam writes like this. Kol case for case, marba cases halola mavarach alel bracha b'fnei atzma. Every cup that we drink from these four cups, you make a separate bracha, which means you make hagofen on each one. The case rishon emerol of kiddush hayem. On the first cup, you make kiddush. Case sheni kedel v'sagoda. On the second cup, we say the agoda. Case shlishi mavarach al birchas hamazon. The third cup, we bench over that cup. Case revi gemer of halal. In the fourth cup, we finish halal. The regular halal that we always say as halal, we finish it because we started the first two paragraphs already before we drank the second cup, so now we finish the halal. And you also say birchas hashir. The Rambam says later, also taken from the Gemara, birchas hashir means yaluch Hashem Elokeinu. That's another part of what we say by the fourth cup. And then we drink the fourth cup and we make hagofen on the fourth cup. This is what we always do. Now, concerning the fourth cup, I'll read you what it says in the Gemara in Pesachim Daf Kuf Yichtes. It's all as an introduction to the Sikha. It says in the Gemara like this: Tana Rabbanan, the Rabbanan taught Revi. The Gemara there goes through what we do on all four cups. So by the fourth cups, it says Geimer all of us halal. We finish halal. Ve'emer halal agodol. And we say halal agodol. Now the Gemara says halal agodol is the capital starting with Heidel Hashem Ketef Kilei Umchazli, all the Kilei Umchazli. That capital in Gemara is called Halal Agodol. And the Gemara explains why it's called the big Halal, whatever the reason is. That capital till the next capital, Naras Bovel, that capital is called Halal Agodol. So here it says, I'll read it again. On the fourth cup, we finish the regular Halal and we say the Halal Agodol. And who said this? Divrei Reb Tarfon. This is what Reb Tarfon said. There is another girsa, not the way we have it in our Gemara printed, but there's another girsa that comes from the Geinim, a girsa in this Gemara a little bit different. An interesting girsa. And I'll read that girsa, even though it's not printed in our Gemara, but there's a girsa like this. Revi, the fourth cup, Gemara of Halal. We finish the Halal. And then, Chamishi, a fifth cup, Eimerol of Halal Agodol. We say the Halal Agodol, Divrei Reb Tarfon, that's what Reb Tarfon holds. And it seems, according to some, not everyone agrees, but according to some, that there's a machlekes here, an argument between the first opinion and Reb Tarfon. The first opinion is that we drink four cups. Comes Reb Tarfon and he adds and he argues and he says that we have a fifth cup and we say Halal Agodol. That's not what we do Bepeil. Bepeil, where you have the fourth cup, and on the fourth cup you finish Halal. We also say on the fourth cup the Halal Agodol, and we say the Halaluka. But the way that gear says in Gemara, that Reb Tarfon holds that we have a fifth cup, and we say on the fifth cup the Halal Agodol. This is the introduction. Now we'll get to the sheet of the Rambam. So let's read the Sikh inside. The Rambam in Perik Ches, the beginning of Perik Ches, the eighth Perik of Hilchas Chometz Matzah, the Rambam starts off by saying, before he tells us all the dinim, now he makes the order. He tells us practically the order. And he starts off that Perik by saying, Seder Asiyas Mitzvah Selim B'Leil Chamish Osa Kachu. The order of how we fulfill these mitzvahs on the night of the 15th, which is the night of Pesach, Kachu, this is what it is. And the Rambam tells us, same thing as we read in the Gemara, and as the Rambam said before, that we make a broch on every cup, and first time we say Kiddush, and Shechayonu, we drink it, then he says in the beginning of Perek Shmini, and then he says we make Netil Sedayim, then he says, it goes on to the whole Seder of everything. Then, Nochen Kos Revi, when the Rambam continues, and he comes after, when he describes what we do with the fourth cup, Zog the Rambam says, this is in Halacha Yud, the Rambam says like this, V'yeshle limze keis chamishi. I'll translate the words v'yeshle in simple translation, and we'll see later what it means. Yeshle simply means, and he has. And we'll see what that means. He has limze keis chamishi, to pour a fifth cup, v'leimer olav halal agodol, to say halal agodol. For who, what is the halal agodl? As we said before, mahu meheidel Hashem kitayv, starting from the words heidel Hashem kitayv kilei chazdei ad al naras bovel till the next capital, all the kilei chazdei. So the Rambam says yeshlei, he has to pour a fifth cup and say the halal agodl, and he says what it is. And then the Rambam continues, and this cup, which is the fifth cup, is not an obligation like the 4 cups. Their mocker of Keis Chamishi is in the Braise, the Girsas Hagainim. The source that there is such a thing as a fifth cup comes from the Braise that we quoted from the Gemara before. According not to our Girsa, the way we have it, it doesn't mention the fifth cup, but according to the Girsa of the Gainim. The Gainim were the people who came after the Gemara. There was Rabbi Seferoi, then came the Gain before the Rishonim yet. So they had a different Girsa in Gemara. Their Girsa was, as I said before, Chamishi. The Gemara says that fourth, you say on that finish Halal, and then they have the Girsa Chamishi, the fifth cup, Eimer all of Halal Agodl. You say this big Halal, which is Kilei and Chazdeis, Divrei Reb Tarfon. And that's where the Rambam gets his din. So obviously the Rambam also had the Girsa in the Gemara, like the Geinim, that Reb Tarfon has another opinion. His opinion is that we drink a fifth cup. Seems like we drink a fifth cup and we say the Halal Agodl. State in Sefer Rabbeinu Meneiach for Rambam. So it says in the Sefer Rabbeinu Meneiach wrote a Pirush on the Rambam. He says like this: Mehoshaminen. From this Rambam we see the Oser Lemishte Yayin Achar Arba cases that after the 4 cups you're not allowed to drink wine. The Isalka Daita of the Shori. If you would think that you're allowed to drink wine, why would you need to say halagodl? Which means like this, and I'll explain what it means. Rabbeinu Meneiach learns that the Rambam learns pshat in this fifth cup. You say halagodl. Pshat is like this. That's the way it seems he learns. There are 4 cups only. If you're thirsty, let's say, and you want to drink more wine, which you're not allowed to, so the din is you have an eitzah. You could have a 5th cup. But if you're going to decide to have a 5th cup, it's only if you say the halal agodl of it. So the Rabbeinu Meneiach says, from here we see that normally you cannot drink any wine after the 4th cup, because if Isal Kadai you would think that you're allowed to, why would we tell him the meimer of halal agodl? Why would you have to say halal agodl? Why can't we say you can drink more wine if you want? Since the Rambam brings that there's a 5th cup, and you have to say halal agodl. Elav shmamino is araya the ein lishtes. Araya that you can't drink. Avalim rotza lishtes, but if he wants to drink, so rechleimer alei you have to say something special on that cup. Dugmid the revi, just like the 4th cup, and you have to say it minyone the halola. You have to say the same meaning of what you said in the 4th. The 4th cup you said the regular halal, so you have to say the inyan of the halal, uminyona de Yitzias Mitzrayim, and something that has to do with Yitzias Mitzrayim. Ubalafoche, and if you don't do that, also lishtas, you're not allowed to drink. So the Rabbeinu Meneiach goes that way. He says that from the Rambam we see that you're not allowed to drink after the 4th cup. And how does we see it from the Rambam? From the fact that the Rambam says that the 5th cup you have to say halal agodl. So what comes out? How does the Rambam Meneiach learn pshat in Rambam? From Divrei Rabbeinu Meneiach is verstandig. From the words of Rabbeinu Meneiach we understand. As a len Divrei Rambam, that he learns pshat in the Rambam, as the case chamish is zayin for the shus. That the 5th cup that the Rambam mentioned is only you're able to do it. You don't have to do it. It's not a chayva. The yeshle limzik, so he learned pshat. When the Rambam says the yeshle limzik, which would touch the yeshle means he has to, means meint a heter. That means you're allowed to. The yeshle, and a lot of times it means that. The yeshle means you could do it if you want. That there is a heter. Im rotzel lishtes. If you decide, if you want to drink, you have it heter to drink it, but tzorech leimer alei kos, you have to say on that cup the halal agodl. And that is takivi the shita from Kama Geinim. Many of the Geinim, and the Rebbe brings in order 6, brings in order 4. There's a whole discussion in Geinim. Many Geinim hold as case chamish is reshus mamish. The 5th cup, the fact that there's a concept of a 5th cup is mamish, something that if you want to, you could do. Says in ganzen totally, but saying that depends only what you want, with the condition that you have to say the halal agodl. So it seems like the Rambam learns like that too, according to the Rabbeinu Meneiach. So let's go back what the Rambam says. When the Rambam, when he finishes with the 4 cups, looking back at the Losh, he says, "V'yeshle limza case chamisha v'leimer of halal agodl," means you are able to, you're allowed to. You're allowed to have a 5th cup, but you have to say the halal agodl on it. So the Rambam holds that the 5th cup, even though he mentions it, is completely dependent on the person's will. If he wants to, he could have a fifth cup and say Halal Agodol. But der Pirush L'chura nit glatik and Loshan Rambam. This pshat is not simple to put it into the words of Rambam. From the Rambam's Messiah Kenal, because as we heard before, the Rambam finishes off the case cases. This is not an obligation like the 4 cases. If the Rambam holds that the 5th cup is not an obligation at all, but the Rambam get out sagen bekitzer because in a chayva should be very simple, short. This cup is not an obligation. The Rebbe in Order 9 actually says even these words are not so simple. He didn't even have to say that because normally when it says v'yesh loy means you're able to, means it's up to you. So he didn't even have to write it's not a chayva. But even let's say he did want to tell us clearly. So all he would have to write, this cup is not an obligation. For Narichas Loshna Rambam is mashing from the length of the Rambam's expression seems as the kos chamisha hot is a chayva. But the 5th cup also has a certain obligation. So Norbas ein chayva k'mei arba cases. It's not the same level obligation as the 4 cups, but there's certain level of obligation. And according to the way we said before, it seems for Rabbi Meneach Pshat and Rambam, the Rambam holds it's completely no obligation whatsoever. But it doesn't seem from the Rambam like that. So there's some little obligation. And what that means, we'll see later. Seems from the Ran Psochim also learned Pshat and Rambam that there is some kind of obligation, not like it seems to Rabbi Meneach. Because the Ran explains the words of Rav Tarfon, he cites like this. The 4 cups are an obligation. Chamishi reshus, the 5th one is not an obligation. It's up to you. If you do want to drink, you're able to drink it. Then he says another pshat. The mitzvah min amufchar lishtes kes chamishi. It's a mitzvah min amufchar means it's better mitzvah. The mitzvah is done betterly. Better. There is a concept of obligation, so to speak. It's better if you do it. That's up to you. It's a mitzvah min amufchar if you drink a 5th cup. And then you say the halal agodol. That's the meaning of the words. So the second pshat in the Ran says, the second pshat, that it is a shtikl chayva, and he finishes off, this is how the words of the Rambam tilt in the last perek of Hilchas Chometz Matzah. Hainu, that means, as I learned das Rambam, so we see that the Ran learns pshat in Rambam, the kos chamishi is mitzvah min amufcher. This 5th cup is not just a reshus up to you, decide completely. If you do it, you're makayim the mitzvah better. When the fire is the Rambam Meisiv case, now according to that we understand why the Rambam adds case ein chayva k'mei arba cases. That this cup is not the same obligation as the obligation. It doesn't say it's not an obligation at all. There is something there, just not the same level as the 4 cups. And that's what the Rambam means. Even though yeshli limzik, you should. Yeshli doesn't mean it's completely up to you. You should do it. Yeshle, according to the Ran, it seems that Yeshle Limzik means yes, you should. Before we said the pshat Yeshle Limzik, it's up to you if you want. But it comes out from here, Yeshle Limzik, you should do it. From that second, nevertheless, even though it's a mitzvah min amufcher, nevertheless, it's not the same level of obligation like the 4 cups. So the Churi have a second pshat. So we have one shot is then what the Rebbe said. This not so much with the Rambam that the Rambam holds completely to the shoes. It's not an obligation at all. Now we have a second shot which is mashim from the Rambam, and the way that it seems that Rambam learned shot in Rambam that it is a shtickle obligation. You should do it. It's a good idea, and you should do it. Yeshli, you shall make the 5th cup, but it's not the same level of obligation as the 4. Aber der Pirush is lechura nit in ganze glattig in Lashon Rambam. Even this shot is not so clear, simple, smooth in the words of the Rambam. If the Rambam holds that you should do it, he would have written clearly. It's like it's common for the Rambam to write many places. He should have written like this: It's a mitzvah in amufcher means it's a better mitzvah, it's the right thing to do, better thing to do, to pour the 5th cup and say halal god. Okay, a similar loshon. He would have written clear. Why does he write in the way that it's not a chayva like the others? It's not clear. If he means Poshet, it's a good idea, you should do it, he should have written like that. Loshen Rambam is mashma, as it's istakedo in the machiyus, mashma there is a chiyuv. As we said before, it only says it's not the same obligation like the 4, but there is some obligation. Or it says nit mamash mitzvah, it's not a real mitzvah. Not even a mitzvah, even a mitzvah in a mufcher. Because if it would be a mitzvah min hamufcher, he would say it clearly. When the far zog the Rambam nor yeshle nimzik, that's what the Rambam says yeshle, because it's not a mitzvah min hamufcher. It's a shtickle chayva, not a mitzvah hamufcher, which we're stuck here in between. So what is it? It's a shtickle chayva, but not a mitzvah min hamufcher. So what is the pshat in Rambam? Wetten das verstehen, apidiak alosh and divrei Rambam. We'll understand this by first looking into exact words of the Rambam. The Rabbi goes through and analyzes the whole thing. Very geschmack. Wetten das verstehen, apidiak alosh and divrei Rambam. We'll understand by looking at the Rambam. But negate to the Dalet cases, Pascha the Rambam. When it comes to the 4 cups that we drink, the Rambam says like this. This is what the Rambam writes. Kol case, the case, marba cases, halolam avarach halabarach miatzah. We read the Rambam before, but here reading it again. The Rabbi quotes the Rambam. Every one of the 4 cups, you make a separate bracha, which means a separate agocha, which is a big chiddush. Because if you drink a few cups of wine, you make a bracha on the first, not on the rest. But here, whatever reason, make a bracha on each one. Bringt was mesogt of jeden from the cases, and he brings what we say on every one of the cups. First one we say kiddush, second one we say agoda, etc. Und noch in dem Seder Asis Masses Mitzvah Seder B'Leil Chashem Yishos. And later in the next Perik Tes, when he goes into the practical order of how you do these mitzvahs, is mefaret by jeden kos as sheisa. By every cup, when he says, drink the cup. By Keis Rishon, the first cup, he says, Mevorach Beire Pri Hagofen, you make Hagofen, the Eimer Ol of Kiddush Hayem Uzman, you make Kiddush on it, and you say Shechayonu, V'Sheisa, drink the cup. By the second cup he writes, you make Hagofen, so after the Agoda, you make Hagofen, and you drink the cup. By the third cup he says, by the third cup he says, you bench over that cup, and you drink it. By the fourth cup, he doesn't say exactly the words you drink it, but he says something similar. You make Hagofen, and after that, don't take anything, don't taste anything. Which means, this is the Rambam is telling us, after you finish with this cup, which means, as far as taste, the last thing that you taste should be the 4th cup. So the Rambam is as if he's saying, drink that 4th cup. Because he says, after that, don't drink anything, don't eat anything. After that. That means this is the last thing you drink. So by all 4 cups, the Rambam stresses the word that you drink it. But when it comes to the 5th cup, Zog the Rambam nor Canal, the Rambam says, and quoting again what the Rambam says, Yeshle limse kois chamishi. Yeshle, you could, whatever the taishin yeshle, to pour the 5th cup, the Leib all of halal agodel, and you say the halal agodel, and he doesn't finish off like he did by the 4th cup, 4 cups, that you say agof and then you drink it. He didn't mention that you drink the cup. Why? Well, Pia, you do a gate ladik shel Rambam Milshein, knowing how much exact the Rambam was when all the wording he said, the full movement is understood. Ados guf is kavanos ledayik. That the Rambam means to tell us, to be medayik. Adam keis chamish is maniches. By not writing, by the 4 cups he writes you drink, and here he doesn't, he's telling us you don't drink it. Mezim nor mezik, umezoktev halal agod. You just pour it. So he's learning a nupshat in the Rambam. And the Rambam says, Yeshle limze keis chamishi, which means you should do it. You should pour the 5th cup and say the halal agodel, and that's it. But he doesn't say, and don't drink it. You say halal and you don't drink it. And if you think about it, it fits to the hemshech of the Rambam. What did he write the Rambam before that? Before the 5th cup, he says, he said, you pour the 4th cup, you say halal, and you make hagofen, and the whole night you shouldn't taste anything. Besides water, you can drink water. That's what he says. And right after that, he says you pour the 5th cup. So how could you say when he says he pours the 5th cup, you mean to drink it, when a line before that, he writes that after the 4th cup, you can't drink anything, except water. The Rambam will not. First he says, don't taste anything, which means don't drink anything besides water, after the 4th cup. And right after that, he'll write, that you drink a cup. After the 4th, you do drink a 4th cup. It's a contradiction. It seems very clear from the Rambam. This is what the Rebbe says, that the Rambam holds that you don't drink that 5th cup. He says, yeah. The Rambam holds that you pour the fifth cup and you don't drink it. So the Pshat and Rambam, the Rebbe says like this. The Rambam learned for the day as the Mefarish as the Ptarfin is Mechulim and Dastan Kamer. The Rambam holds that the Ptarfin, according, like those opinions, that the Ptarfin argues with Tana Kamer. Simi is Mechuyev, not the cases or the Chamisha cases, whether we have to drink 4 or 5 cases. As we said before, in the Girsa in the Gemara, according to that Girsa is that first it says that you drink 4 cups and on the 4th cup you finish halal. And then the Girsa says, and then you have a 5th cup and you say, Allah God, give it Reb Tarfon. And as we said before, many hold that Reb Tarfon argues with the first opinion. The first opinion says 4 cups and that's finished. Reb Tarfon says that you drink a 5th cup. So the Rambam will say like this, holds like that Girsa, and holds that Reb Tarfon is arguing. Now, that means that the first opinion, which is the Chachamim, hold that you don't drink a 5th cup. The Fizer Rafachu is coming as Allah Kedas Tane the done. Since it's only Reb Tarfon against the rest of the Chachamim, you should pass him like that Tane. Is mechuyev nor in arba cases. You only need 4 cups. Reb Tarfon is the one that holds that you need a 5th cup, but we don't hold that way. That's why we should do. Leidoch habe gefindt ben die Gemara is shakel v'tori aliba der Reb Tarfon. Was man sagt, because hey, the Gemara continues and discusses according to Reb Tarfon, when he has a 5th cup, says you should drink a 5th cup. What do you say? Halal agodl. What is halal agodl? The Gemara goes in. What's halal agodl? Now, if the Gemara brings an opinion which is not according to halacha, the Gemara will not discuss details because we don't pass them anyway. The Gemara goes into details, understanding what is the meaning of Reb Tarfon. He says you drink a 5th cup and you say halal agodl. What's halal agodl? The full mashma as Reb Tarfon is ungenommen halacha. Is mashma that Reb Tarfon's opinion does count. So now we have a contradiction. The halacha we pashta is like the chachamim against Reb Tarfon that you only have 4, not 5th. Then the Gemara mashma that we do take Reb Tarfon la halacha. Wie soll man sich führen bepel? So what you do, you can't do both. Or you take the cup or you don't take the cup. Do you pass like the chachamim that you only have 4, or you pass Reb Tarfon that you have to have 5? The chura about me can sagen, could have said maybe first glance, that's a suffix, since we don't know who the halacha is, like there's a possibility like this and like that. So we should be machmer, like the Reb Tarfon, and drink a 5th cup, even if the halacha is mainly like the Rabbanon. But we should do Reb Tarfon. That you can't say. You can't do that. According to Chachamim, that you only obligated 4 cups. You're not allowed to drink. It's not the pshat. They say you have to drink 4. He says you should drink 5. So you can be machmer. Chachamim say you only drink 4, but maybe you can drink of everything after. But the Rambam sagt as noch in Kim, it's a dalet case. The Rambam says after doing the 4 cups, you can't take any. Except water, so you can't drink. So you can't say let's be machmer. So what do? So we pass it like a chachamim, but we also want to do like a Tarfon, because he's also expect laloch. Is the Rambam machriya? So the Rambam comes to a compromise. You should pour the 5th cup. And that's it. No more. Don't drink it. So we have 2 things here. Men trinkt nor 4 cases. We drink only 4 cups. We pour a 5th cup to be the opinion of Reb Tarfon. What do we gain by pouring a 5th cup if we don't drink from it? What do we get? Yes, we find an example, something similar in halacha. We find a case, mezigas cost, that you pour a cup, and we say certain things over the cup, and we don't drink it. Where do we find it? So Rabbi gives an example. If you ate Friday and it went all the way into Shabbos, and you're allowed to, and you make kiddush, and you continued eating into Shabbos. Now you have to bench. When you bench, you have to have a cup. Normally you bench with a kos. It's like Kamer Day, as many opinions hold, that you would say benching on a cup. Because that's the real way to do it. Even though nowadays we're not so makbid, but when there's a minion, you makbid. But anyway, there is a din that you should on a kos. So in a case like this, you should also do it on a cup. Here's a case where you didn't make kiddush, obviously. You continue the meal into Friday night, and obviously you didn't eat anything after the shkia, whatever it is. But it's now you're benching after Shabbos already, and you didn't make kiddush yet. So what do? You didn't make kiddush yet, so you can't drink, but you're benching on the kos. So as many opinions hold, bench on the cup, even though you don't drink from it, because you can't drink before kiddush. So the case is for Pesach. The same thing is when it comes to the cups of Pesach night, that there is a concept in just having the kos and doing something over it. Like here, you have the cup and you say benching over it by this Friday night, and you don't drink it. The same thing here also. And the Rebbe explains, what do we mean the same thing Pesach night? Because in the Bechlal seine Fragen in dem zwei Inyonim. Bechlal, in the cases of Pesach night, there are 2 Inyonim. That's obvious. The Rebbe just analyzes it. Number one, the Shtiyasa case is a union of drinking 4 cups. Second thing, those was the Chachama Masaken, when Suzogen the Fjeder from the 4 cases. Then also, every one of these cups have something that you say over it. So there's 2 inyanim in the cups. There's what you say over the cups, and then there's a drink in the cups. So we have these 2 things. So comes out, and we do find that there's a possibility of saying things over it, like we find by the benching of Friday night, in the case that we mentioned before, that you say over the bench, but you don't drink it. The far paskin, the Rambam has been negay kos chamisha that amazes on them kos. Rambam paskin, you have to pour the cup, and that's tam. Belay all of halal agod, you have to say something over it. So you do say over it. So there is an accomplishment, something with the cup. Afa big, I mean, you drink it, even though you can't drink it, and you do it. Say to yetzer and das reptarfen. Akalponi bin yuzay. So you yetzer reptarfen as much as possible, at least in this. So you reptarfen himself probably holds so far that you have to drink it too. But we don't want to do like a ptarfim because the Chachamim say you only have 4, so you can't drink anything after the 4th. But at least to a certain degree, we want to also be yetzer the opinion of Reb Tarfon. So we pour it. So we do partially of what Reb Tarfon holds, at least as much as we can, to pour the 4th cup. And what do we gain? That there's something we say over it. And that is the halal agodol. But then the Rebbe says you could add another point. The Rambam learned the Kama portion. Rambam maybe learns differently. The same idea, but the Rambam learns a little bit different. He learns like different Meforshim. As a Ptarfon is not mechulep and das Tanakama. The Ptarfon is not arguing with the Tanakama, with the first opinion. Till I was saying a Ptarfon is arguing. So we do a little bit like a Ptarfon. He holds you got to drink it too, and we just pour it to be yates a little bit. Could be the Rebbe says the Rambam holds that the Ptarfon does not even, like other Meforshim, that the Ptarfon is not arguing. As the mitzvah to drink in this not of the Tala case, he agrees with the Tanakama to drink. You only need you only drink the 4 cups. When the pshat in Dibur Reb Tarfon, like Gisose, and the meaning, the Pirish, the pshat in Reb Tarfon's words, according to the Girse of Chamishi Yomer of Halal Agodel, that he holds that there's a 5th cup, Halal Agodel. What did Reb Tarfon mean? Reb Tarfon himself meant, he's as a dark blaze meisik zainem kos. Reb Tarfon himself never meant more. He meant that you should just pour the 4th cup, the 5th cup, of Halal Agodel. Aber nicht drinking him, don't drink him. So before we said Reb Tarfon holds you drink it, we just do part of it. Reb Tarfon. Reb says another pshat. Maybe Reb Tarfon himself never meant it. He agrees with it on the comment that it's only 4 cups you have to drink, and then he says there's a 5th cup that you should pour, and that's what he meant. And it makes sense. The Rebbe says there's a reason behind it. Why that would be? Because Chamish is uiski tilt and is anders from the other 4 cases in the Mgeder Kima Mitzvah. This 5th cup is generally different than the other 4 cups in how you fulfill the mitzvah. Certainly what the object of the mitzvah, what kind of object, what's the gather of the cup. So we'll see that 5th cup is different. There's a reason that even Reb Tarfon holds that you shouldn't drink from it. And he explains why. Wegen the 4 cases of the Gemara, concerning the 4 cups, the Gemara says, Arba kasa tikna Rabbanan derech chedus. The Rabbanan established, made a takana that you have to drink 4 cups of wine in the form of freedom, to show freedom. So therefore, each 1 cup, we should do a mitzvah with the cup. With the Rambam said before, Kol kos v'kos mar b'kes salolu. He quoted it before. Every one of these 4 cups, mevorach al bracha b'fnei atzma, you make a separate bracha, and then he says what you do with it. Case rishnei marol of kiddush hayim. The first one you say kiddush. Case sheni kirol b'sahalal. The second one you say dagod. Dagod, I mean, they say dagod over it. Case shlishi mevorach al birchas hamosn. The 3rd cup you say benching. Case revi gamer al b'sahalal. Mevorach al birchas hashir. The 4th cup is finish halal, and you say the birchas hashir, which is yaluchak, etc. That's haste. That means like this. Shot in these words. Alpha pishi eshlei mazechel das Rambam kol echad ve'echad from the 4 cases is chedet mitzvah from yatzma. Even Loshen Admor Azok Mishulchonei, like the Alter Rebbe says, the Rambam also holds that each cup is a separate inyan. Each one is a separate cherus, shows freedom separately in a separate mitzvah. Nevertheless, there is something, a common denominator between all 4. Each one has a separate inyan, but they're all something in common. Alpha Pekin and the alle in themselves gather suk mitzvah. They're all in the same gather in the same category of a mitzvah. Number 1, the mitzvah shava b'chol dalet case is shtil lecherus. Number 1, they all 4 have the same thing, that you drink it, and that shows the freedom. So that's one thing that all 4 cups do the same. And another thing, by yed neine von zeh anander mitzvah mamir b'barachalov. Each cup has a certain mitzvah that you say on it, and a certain separate bracha. That's a common denominator. Common denominator that each one has its own inyan that you do with it. So each one has that. The kos chamisha is needed them together from key mitzvahs cases. The fifth cup is not in the same category, in the same gather of the mitzvah of fulfilling the mitzvah of the four cups. Number one, the kos is maniches, and we don't drink it. That's what we just said. We don't drink it. And number two, the amir olav is nit besug amir of the dalot cases. That whatever we say over it is in the same, not the same categories, but order four cups, there are certain things you say on it. The das my Rambam is when the Amir of Case Chamisha nit chesed bebrocha. You look, see the Rambam says that when we finish off the fifth cup, the way the Rambam says, he doesn't say that we make a brocha for it. Vashenka the Amir of the Dalit cases, we don't mean the brocha agofa now. We're talking now about a brocha. Every one of the four cups has a brocha. Kiddush is a brocha, the Haggadah finishes with a brocha, benching is a brocha, that the fourth cup we finish off with a brocha, as we know, we're saying the Haggadah finish with a brocha. By the fifth cup, there's no end with a brocha. So we right away we see it's a different type of drinking, even if you have to drink the fifth, even if there's such a thing, not drink, but even there's such a thing as a fifth cup, it's not the same. And you might say, as the Kais Chamisha was a zog the Ruv Halal Hagodol, maybe the pshat is like this, that the fifth cup, that you say that big halal, which is from Heidel Hashem Ketev al Naras Bola, starting Heidel Hashem Ketev, Kilo Elam Chazdei, all the way through old Kilo Elam Chazdei, still on Naras Bovel. You know what that is? And we have a fifth cup for it. Is a halal ve'edo of Klolos Dalat Kesesh Kei Mitzvasim. That's not part of the mitzvah of the four cups. That's a thanking Hashem for giving us the mitzvah of the four cups. Ubechlolos Yeser, maybe more. It's a thanking Hashem for being able to fulfill all the mitzvahs that we're doing that night. I'm not going into the details. So B'meil, the Rebbe is trying to show this as a separate category of a cup. So if it's a separate category of a cup, it makes sense that should be different. Don't drink it. The other cups have its own lineage, so there's a special drinking in it, special chayros, and that's something in all the four cups. So they're all something that you have to drink. You express this. But the fifth cup is an inyan for itself, especially if you're going to say that's b'chal, it's a thanking Hashem for the four cups. So this, you don't have to drink it. But maybe you don't have to drink it. Al pizeh, the Rebbe said, so now we know the pshat, two pshat, they're along the same lines, that the Rebbe learns pshat Rambam that you pour the fifth cup and you don't drink it. So but the first pshat is not what the Rebbe Tarfon meant, but we do some part of what the Rebbe Tarfon meant. And the second pshat, the Rebbe says, maybe the Rebbe Tarfon never even meant it. You could learn like that Rebbe Tarfon, when he adds, according to that Girs and Gemara, that he adds that there's a fifth cup and you say Allah Godel, he himself means you should only pour because it's a different category of cup. It's not the same category that you have to drink from it. Now, this will also explain the words of the Rambam where he says, Yesh lelimze keis chamishi. The Rambam says, you can, not even you can, that according to the Rebbe's Pshat, not you can, you should. There's an inyan in it. If tak, according to the Rebbe, even according to the Rebbe who learns that we understand why it's a shtickle obligation, because pouring is, but it's not the same like the four cups. But why doesn't he say mitzvah namufcha? Now we'll understand. He doesn't say mitzvah namufcha limzik. Even the pouring, he doesn't say it's a mitzvah namufcha to pour the fifth cup or any similar logic. Because l'chora, even so far, even according to the Rebbe's pshat, he could have said it's a mitzvah namufcha to pour, but it's still a mitzvah namufcha. So the Rebbe explains why. The loshe mitzvah namufka b'derech klal b'dayit ados ha'hisofish shleimus in ki mitzvah zu. When we say there's a certain mitzvah, then we say there's a mitzvah namufka. That means that's something better to do makes the mitzvah that you're doing more complete. That's what we say. This mitzvah could be done, mitzvah namufka. The mitzvah could be done, and the mitzvah should be done more complete. That's what we usually do. Nochmer, go further. It doesn't only mean that the person could do something that will make the mitzvah better. That means he is doing something more to the mitzvah. Nor mitzvah min hamufcher means, when you say the word the mitzvah is min hamufcher is better, the maile min hamufcher is in the chefzeh da mitzvah. The mitzvah itself is better. Not only, because sometimes you could say, the mitzvah is done just the way you did it and finished. If you do it in some other way, you're showing more that you like the mitzvah, something in the person. Mitzvah min hamufcher means the mitzvah is better. That means there is a change in the mitzvah itself. Derech Loshon Rambam, the Rebbe gives an example, but we find the Rambam saying that. The Rambam writes when getting Neres Chanukah. Concerning Chanukah, we know mitzvah sheyeh b'chol bayis abayis, mitzvah sheyeh b'chol bayis abayis madlik nerechad. The mitzvah is that in every house there should be every night one candle for the whole household. That's the mitzvah. That's the first mitzvah. Then the Rambam quotes it's all from the Gemara. Hamahader esa mitzvah. If you're mahader, you do it once another way. That you do it that each person has his own candle. Hamahader yeser al zeva esa mitzvah and amufcher. If you want to be mahader more, and you do, and the Rambam uses loshe mitzvah and amufcher. Madik neir l'chol echot v'laylo rishon meisa v'elo b'chalaylo b'laylo neir echot. That you write light every night. Every person should light one. The first night 1. The second night you go further and you go 2 and 3 and 4. So that's more. So it's 3 levels. The original mitzvah is 1 for the whole household, every night 1. Second one is that not only 1 for the household, but everyone should have a candle, 1 candle every night. And then mitzvah minamufcher is that everyone should have a candle, but every day to add. But the hidur dorten is anufta in mitzvahs nechanike gufa. There is not only the person shows something. The mitzvahs nechanike is better. In the chefze the neres chanike. In the candles of Chanukah, there is something better, like the Rabbi explained in a different place. So we see from there, mitzvah and amufcha, the mitzvah is better. We bald, as a shittas Rambam is a case, Chamish need eaten together from the mitzvah's out cases, since we explained according to the Rambam. Even if you hold there is a fifth cup, but that 5th cup is not in the same category we said as the 4. It's a separate Indian. Is nishayach to zog, not the case, hey, is min amufcha in mitzvahs. Dalit cases. You can't say it's a mitzvah and mufcha. Mitzvah and mufcha would mean, if the Rambam would say it, the mitzvah is dalit cases. That mitzvah of dalit cases becomes better if you add a 5th cup. But that we said before is not true. According to the Rambam, it doesn't add any. It's a different category. It's a new thing. That's a new thing that there's a union in pouring a 5th cup. So the Rambam doesn't want. The far zog the Rambam v'yesh l'dim zekos chamishi. That's what the Rambam says. You should pour. You should pour a 5th cup. Al tzabazun der tzibur b'chiyuv. Ananda lotion v'yeshle. He doesn't say mitzvah namufcher. It says different. He says v'yeshle. You just don't get new thing. You should. It's kedai. It's right to pour a 5th. But he doesn't say it's mitzvah namufcher. Because mitzvah namufcher means that these 4 cups become better if you have a 5th cup. It's not. It's a new gather. On their far is the Rambam Meirich B'Lshein. That's what the Rambam goes into link. The case ain't a chayva k'mei arba cases. The Rebbe has the kasha. Why does the Rambam write this is not an obligation like the 4 cups? It should say it's not an obligation. Because according to the Rebbe, it is an obligation. But not like the 4 cups. And it's madgish at der kos chamishi. Rambam stresses the 5th cup is not chayva with the andere cases. It's not an obligation like the other 4. Nor mandit v'yeshle. Yeshle means you should do it. It's a good thing to do, but nothing to do with the 4 cups. It's not the same type of the 4 cups. We can now like explain before. So all the words of the Rambam fit. You should do it. Yeshle means you should do it, but the Rambam doesn't write that's a mitzvah and a mufcher, and he writes it's not a chayva like the others. It has some kind of union of something that you should do, and he only writes you should pour and not to drink, and everything fits. He writes you can't drink after the 4th cup, and right away he writes that you should make a 5th cup. Because he doesn't hold you should drink it. He writes you can't drink anything after 4th cup. Yeah, and then he says, pour a 5th cup. You can't do anything after the 4th cup. And he says, pour a 5th cup, but don't drink it. Now the Rebbe goes into another prat in the senior. The some say, by the way, I just want to mention that the Rebbe brings in the orders that the Rambam's son writes that the Rambam himself only did the 4 cups. The Rambam didn't pour a 5th cup. Because really it's a good thing to do, the Rambam says, but the Rambam didn't do it. So first the Rebbe writes before, could be the Rambam changed his mind. He wrote that in the Sefer, but when it came later on, when his son, Rabbi Avram, was by the Seder of his father, it was ready when he changed his mind and he didn't even do that. But the Rambam himself did not pour the 5th cup. But the Rebbe will explain later a little bit in the order why the Rambam, the Pale, did not, and we'll get to it. But the Bible was saying like this: some say the fact that we have Leo in his cup, it is because it's connected to this 5th cup. Since there's an argument in Gemara whether you need a 5th cup, the halacha is never clear. The far machna since we don't set out, is so we make a 5th cup. That's the cup of Elio that we make a 5th cup. But we don't drink it. The far roof and that opinion that holds that this is case Shalio is connected to that 5th cup, that's why we call it the cup of Elio. On Daiten Digdermit, we point out for this, aber Elio vet kumen, vet mavara sein alles fake is, vet der sofik wegen dem kosten is baraben. Elio will come and he's going to explain, find solutions to every question. So they'll also come and resolve whether we need a 5th cup or not. So this cup, which is based on the sofik, How we paskin according to those opinions. So we call it the case of Eliyahu. We're waiting for Eliyahu to tell us whether we need it or not. But the Rebbe says, for Chok Yankiv, when the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, is aber muchach hat seine zwei besondere Yonim. From the Chok Yankiv and the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, it's very clear that this has, the case of Eliyahu has nothing to do with the fifth cup. The Alter Rebbe brings in Shulchan Aruch, Musakar Amo, the Alter Rebbe brings in Shulchan Aruch, the Ramo writes, Achar Dalet cases after the four cups, Nog Kol Yisroel, and there is Sarishanim Shaleilish Yayin. That from all generations we don't drink wine afterwards. And then he brings imlay, let's say, racharb, unless you really, really need. Kigon she'istanis is a shotoyev harbalish. Istanis, somebody is very refined and he feels he needs the wine, or he's very, very thirsty or whatever, really wants to drink. Then you could drink the wine. You could drink. If you don't have anything to drink, like you could drink other things. If you only have wine, you're allowed to, you could be matter him to drink a fifth cup for Leimer of Halal Godel and say the Halal with Nishmas and Nishtabach, Adachsim and Nishmas and Nishtabach till the end, and you drink a fifth cup. So the Alter Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe brings this concept of having a fifth cup. That if you really have to, you can have a fifth cup and you could even drink it. When you Friedrich and Simon Zok der Alter in previous Simon, a different Simon before, he brings from Chok Yanke, V'neagim Ebdina Selu, the meaning in these countries, Limzik, Case Echad Yesem HaMesumim. We pour one cup more than what the people have. The Keiranese, we call it Case Shaliyo. That's it. So the Alter Rebbe brings both. He brings the singing of the possibility of a fifth cup, and he brings the union of Case Shaliyo. For them, he's moving as a sign of Tzvei, Bezundere Zacha Lekamre. From that, we see that they're two separate inyonim. So much so. Number one, they stehen, seine voneinander geteilt in zwei besondere simonim. They're divided. They're written in two separate simonim. If they be the same inyan, it would go together. They're two separate simonim. And the second thing, they werden angerufen mit andere Shemes. They have different names. One is called the Case Shel Eliyahu, and the other one is called Case Chamish Lefinskot. Und sie haben sich prote mit ihnen Shenim. They have different dinim. Licht is Case Chamish, automatic given Tzorich. This fact of drinking a fifth cup, the way the Alter Rebbe says, if someone needs it, someone is thirsty, and he has it, so then we allow them to do it. And then we'll have versorgen of halal agodel. And even when we allow them to drink the wine, the fifth cup, the din is that you have to say halal agodel. Mashenk in cases shalayo, but the cup of Eliyahu, negin benin selu, nit narat yeshlat. That's the meaning. Everyone does it. That's the meaning. That's number one. So we see different dinim. So it's different, written different places. They have different names, and even more than that, we see the halacha is different. The halacha by the cup of Eliyahu, it's done for sure. And by the fifth cup, the way they write, it's only if you have to, etc. And chiluk achi gadol, the biggest difference is mizmezig no case echad yesem andamisubim. Case Eliyahu, you add one. You only make one cup. All the people, you have 20 people at the table. The four cups, everyone drinks. The Eliyahu is only one. V'shayich l'seder kol ha'misubim. And this one cup is connected to all the people by the Seder. It's not that everyone gets a cup, pours a cup Shaliliyo. Mashenk in the case Chamishi, but the fifth cup that we're talking about was Matmata given name that everyone, let's say if all the 20 people are thirsty, they all could do it. Anybody who needs it has this heter of doing it and saying the halagodim. This is that you hold that you don't have to pour the fifth cup, but you're allowed to. So some say we connected this case Shaliyo. So this is not according to the Rambam. As we said, the Rambam holds was halt kenalas is mitztam a heter or the reshus no v'yesh lichiv. According to the Rambam, we said the Rambam holds it's not just a heter. It's something you should do. We're obligated to do, not to drink it, but obligated. So when you get to the Rambam, with case chamish ados is nit achiyu from ein kos for alle mesubim. According to the Rambam, also when he says that you should do it, he doesn't hold one person should do it. It should be one on the table. When he says v'yeshlin, and we said before, in order to be yetz shit of the Rabbi Tarfim, you should. So everyone should do that. Everyone who does the mitzvah has to have that fifth cup. The Rambam says yesh loy limzig. He, meaning he who has the arba cases, who drinks the 4 cups, has to do it. She doesn't even say you should pour a 5th cup. So we see from the Rambam also, you can learn Pshat in Rambam, that by the 5th cup, everybody should do it. Which is not cases Shalaliyo. Cases Shalaliyo, it's only one. So we see that The Rebbe does not agree with those that hold that the case Shalyo is because of the case Chamishi. We make this like as sort of like a compromise because we don't know if we have to have a fifth cup. We make that. Now, abir b'derech efshe b'pnimis inyonim. To explain this, what is the difference between these two inyonim? They're not the same. In pnimis inyonim, more in Chassidus, was number one, case Chamish and case Shalyo zijn zwei besondere Sachen, binyonim v'dinim genau. To explain how pnimis, that this fifth cup and case Shalyo are two separate inyonim, saying what the inyan is, saying the dinim, like we said. Not only are they two separate inyonim, begefint is a inyonim hofchem. We find opposites. Case Chamishi passing the Rambam, the Yesh Leilim is a case Chamishi. A case Chamishi, the Rambam says you should do it. Aber Lepeil is Mazich nicht neigen. Lepeil, you don't do it. Shulchan Aruch is the Psak Halacham is not, as is not a heter listness or a toiv lishnes. We don't do it. In Shulchan Aruch, it's only if your person is a refined and the person is hungry, thirsty, very thirsty, then we give him allowed to do it. But not that you should do it. In the case Shalyo was Hebech Hadavar. The case Shalyo is the opposite. Their cost wird niedermont in Gemara and Rishonim. That's not mentioned. The other one is mentioned. The Rambam, the fifth cup is mentioned. The Rambam, and based on the Girs in Gemara, the case of Shalyo is not mentioned in Gemara, not in Rishonim, or blazing nachreinim, only in the later generations. After their cost is given a meaning b'chol tvutzis Yisrael. That became a meaning in all by all Yidden. There's a meaning of case of Shalyo. I will explain the difference between the two and the explanation of Chassidus. In the two cases, we find a common denominator in these two cups. Was Lefia now, according to what we said before, metring zenit, is a normezik. In these two cups, case Shalyo and the case Chamishi, as we said before, both of them we don't drink, but we pour it. What does that mean? Der Fund ist verstanden, als beide seine verbunden mit der Saavede Madrege, welches Hecher von Avede Saodem b'Meiser Peil Stier. It shows that you don't have to do anything. You have to pour it. Pour it is, but you yourself don't drink it. That means if you talk about everything has a ruchnisdike meaning, a spiritual meaning, a certain connection to higher madreges, everything that you do. Now we know there are certain things that you have to do in order to be mamshich, that light of Hashem, Eir Ein Sof, that comes down in connection to that inyan that we do. You have to do something to bring it down. That's called Isarusa de Latate, and that brings down the air. That brings down the air. Here we say, in both cases, we connect to such a madrege that you can do. You don't ask it to do it. In case it means you don't drink. That means it's a madrege that you can't reach. It's not dependent on what you do. When das is the Pirish Pnimi, and then was the Rambam is Messiah, and that's the deeper meaning. When the Rambam writes, the case it's not an obligation in other cases. That means this is something, there is no obligation here. Now, the Rambam needs to tell us according to Chassidus, and I'll say it by heart before we learn inside. We learn Chassidus that from a certain angle, things that we do, which is not an obligation, reaches a higher madrege. Obviously, we know that this is the Eibishter wants. The Eibishter is happy. And for instance, that's written concerning Hakofes. It says in Chassidus, Alter Rebbe Likutei Torah writes that Hakofes is only a minig. There's no chayva. Simchas Yontev is a din. Simchas Beis HaSheva is also a simcha, but it's not written in the Torah, but it's a simcha from the Eibush that gave us. Simchas Torah is not a chayva. It's not an obligation. It's only a minig. Where is the greatest simcha? The greatest simcha by Yidden is in Simchas Torah. So that means, das ist verbunden mit der Madrege, welches Hecher für chayva. This is connected such a madrege which is beyond chayva. Okay, you do abir being at tefillas arbeites shoes. It's known. The explanation we know shachris is an obligation. Mincha is an obligation. Ma'ariv, it says it became an obligation because the Yidden accepted to do it. So it says in Chassidus, Ma'ariv is higher than the other two, because an obligation. If a mitzvah is an obligation, it means we through our aveda have the power to reach him, bring something down. But sometimes there is such a high madrege we can't do it. So the Eibishter never even gave us an obligation to do it. And if we do it, that means we do it without being obligated. That's even deeper. And as the explanation goes. So here the Rambam says, this one is not a chayva. The other cases are a chayva. This is not a chayva, which means it's a madrege higher than a chayva. Nazay is b'negei l'keses shel. So this fifth cup is not a chayva because it reaches a very high madrege. Keses shel is also not, it's verbunden mit dem minyan agula, which is hech von Aveda Sodom. It's also not a chayva, not an obligation, no din that you have to do it. It's a minig. but it's connected to a madrege very high, especially by the case it's connected to Leonov. He's going to bring the Geula, and that's a very high madrege beyond saying that we could reach it. Avada, we have to do everything for it, but the actual reaching it is something that is beyond the chayva. So both of them have that in common. Still, there's a difference. The fifth cup, the name fifth means it comes after. The word fifth means there is 1, 2, 3 before. That means as much as we don't drink the cup, and it's something that we don't, there's nothing that we do for that, but it's connected to what we did before. That's why it's called chamishi. The fifth cup is different. I mean, the custom of Elio is different. It's a ninya for itself. It's not connected to anything we did before. It's completely something that is beyond our Aveda. The fifth cup is itself not an Aveda, but it's behemshach to the Aveda. So what does that mean? The explanation is like this. The hamshach of the fifth cup, which is something beyond our reach. That's why there's nothing we do for it. But it could only come through and after we do completely what we have to do. So we first have to do what we have to do. There is a Isarusa de Leil, but sometimes it's called the third level because there's a few levels of Isarusa de Leil that comes after we do. We have to do our part. We have to do Isarusa de Latata. But that will not reach that high madrege. It'll reach certain madreges. But when we finish our whatever we could do, and we reach that madrege, then that we make the place that we are an asar shlim. It means the lotion of the zayar. It makes a complete place. So we're making ourselves a complete vessel to receive that high madrege. So it's not that sometimes there are things we reach and we bring down. But this is something we can't reach to bring down. But we have to prepare ourselves to finish what we could do, make ourselves complete from our side. Then the Eibishter on his own is mamshe that madrege, and that's not a chayva, not that we do, and he brings it down. So here, the fifth cup is like that. You don't drink it. That means it's a madrege that's higher than us working to reach it. Nevertheless, it's called the fifth cup. That we have to have 4 before. It did Aveda before, then it comes down. That's what the fifth cup is mentioned in the Gemara. And it was done in the time of the Geinim, and the Rambam brings it. And people had that meaning. They poured the fifth cup for themselves. And each one did that. Each person. Because the Aveda of those generations, it says in the Gemara that the first generations are higher. The first one's like Malachim, the later generation like people, and the later generation are like donkeys, whatever, like different things. So they are in higher madrege. Like it says a different place, Achsher Dore, Bitmia. As the generations go, can you say that the generations became better? Well, it means to say generations get less and less. So these people in the older generations were able to have the Kes Chamisha. They were able to do their Aveda in such a way they could get to the level of the fifth. They're drinking by Seder, drinking the 4 cases was in a higher way. Ubishleimus, they did completely what that accomplishes. So they were kelim, they made themselves ready to receive that higher madrege, because what they did was in a much higher madrege. So they could be mamshich, that fifth madrege that the Rebbe says here, which comes from the case chamisha, that fifth madrege which comes after, because the 4 that they did was so great that now they were able to be mamshich. But in our generations, Ikras in the Mashiach, getting closer to Mashiach, gets less and less, worse and worse. But the Aveda nitaf asefel b'shleimus, the Aveda is not so complete as is Ozayna Kele Ruya Asar Shlim to the Hecher Madrege. That should be a complete vessel. Call it Asar Shlim, the complete place, to the higher Madrege. The farest case Chamisha nitneig b'dereseina. That's why in our generations we don't have the case Chamisha. And before we go further, why cases Shalio we do? So I just want to mention order 48. The Rambam, like the Rebbe asked, why the Rambam Lopeil Mamish did not have the case Chamishi. We just said in just those generations you could. But we said before that the Rambam's son writes that by the Seder the Rambam did not have the case Chamishi. The Rebbe says in order 48, Masha Rambam Lopeil, again, the fact that the Rambam Lopeil Mamish actually, reality, did not behave that way. Yeshlema, you could say, Shehu bichdei lahalis gamei shleyo yochel nagil madrege zu damira al kosei. Because as much as we said before, in those generations at a higher level, they did the Aveda complete. Not everybody. There were certain people who were not the shaykhs to that madrege. So the Rambam wanted to connect himself to those people that even they, that's why what he did was that he was mechaven to have whatever you're supposed to accomplish on the wine on the fourth cup. So he wanted to make that the people who are not in that madrege, she connected them. Even though Be'etzem on the fourth cup, the halal agodl is only real on the fifth cup. We combine it on the fourth. The Rambam did that too, because he wanted to have those people that cannot accomplish the Aveda, such a high madrege, to reach that madrege of the fifth cup. So he also did not have to kick up. So he did something connected to the fifth cup, like we all do. And that is saying the halal agodl, but we say it on the fourth cup. So he wanted to do it to connect them. Just reminds me, the Rebbe doesn't say it in the Sikha, the Rebbe once explained by Ariches why the story with the Baal Shem Tov, with the Sukkah, that once the Rav of the city of Mezhebush came to Baal Shem Tov and Sukkahs, and he looked into a Sukkah and he showed him a lot of shilas on the Sukkah. The Baal Shem Tov tried to explain to him that it's not a shilah, it's kosher. And they had a whole argument, and the Rav didn't agree so fast, till the Baal Shem Tov closed his fist and then opened his hand, and there was a note there. And the note said, Sukkahs Rebbe Yisrael Ksheira, the Sukkah Rebbe Yisrael Baal Shem Tov is kosher, signed Matat Sarapnim, the Malach Matat. So they knew it was kosher. But the Rebbe asked a question, there definitely was shilas on it. Sure, it was kosher, the Baal Shem Tov wouldn't sit in the apostle of Sukkah. But why couldn't he make a Sukkah with all the Hidurim? Why did they have to make a Sukkah that you have to find a heter and find that's kosher? And you have to have a haskoma from Matat. And the Rebbe explained, because there are a lot of people where Sukkah are not so great. So Baal Shem Tov wanted they should be mile them also. So he wanted to connect to them. And if he has such a Sukkah, it brings them also, that they are also connected. And the Rebbe went and spoke about it twice in Long Arichas. The same thing here. The Rambam wanted to connect to these people who are in a lower level, even at the time when there are people in a higher level. That's why he behaved without having the fifth cost. But he tried being with them, today there should be a hamshocha for them also. But that's all when they get the fifth cup. But Keseh Shalilio is for Amunah, but the Amunah of Nidmi Miyasa. Keseh is a different union. It's connected to the Amunah in the coming of Mashiach. If verstanden wurde, we see it's connected to the coming of Mashiach. If verstanden von Hemshech Liber Ad Morazok, look what the Alter Rebbe writes, Ad an Hogeb in the Geil Keseh Shalilio, Zog der Alter Rebbe behemshech to Ascholas Asiv. When he writes about the fact that we poured a cup of Elio, he writes it in continuation what he writes before. He writes before, Tzas Mekem is Negin Shleilin Lachadolim. Many places have a meaning. They don't lock their rooms, their houses, the night that they sleep, the night of Pesach. It's a night of safety for all the Yid in all generations. To take him out of this golas. If Elio come, you believe so much Elio will come and say Mashiach is coming. If he'll come, so right away it'll be open. He'll find an open door. Will go out and greet him very fast. But my meaning is that we believe in it. Yesh be'emunah zu schar godel, and to believe this has a great schar. And then the Rambam, the Alter Rebbe continues. V'neig b'mdina seila, we mean in these countries to pour a fourth cup for Elio. So he says it in connection to believing in Elio, bringing the gula. But the food is moving the posha. Das is kosher v'shaycha to the Ramun in the gula asida. So it's obvious that the kosher Elio has to do with the belief in Elio coming to be mavasir the gula. Now, since the Elio's cause has to do with the Amunah Mashiach, but the Amunah is Dabayad and that not only in the earlier generation that the Amunah, every Yid has the Amunah. Even our generations. All the Yidden are believers. Children are believers. No matter what the level a Yid has in his service of Hashem in a revealed way, is by him ständig. Every Yid has always. Sometimes it's begolui, you feel it. Sometimes you don't feel it. It's in the pneumius, inside your heart. You believe in Mashiach. Not only you believe that he will come, you wait for him. Because the Rambam says anybody who doesn't believe in him or doesn't wait for him is an apikoris. So every Yid not only waits for it, not only believes that he'll come, also waits for him. That's what Hashem told us. Hashem commanded us. As the Rambam says, that it's written in Teresh B'Ksav, about Mashiach is written in Chumash, and it's written in Teresh B'Alpeh. So every Yid has it, no matter how you are. Even in these generations. Not only that, even this generation. Adarab, on the contrary, the more we are closer to Mashiach, then to the Gula, closer to the Gula, the heels of Mashiach, als mehr und starker das mehr bei Yidden. Strong, more and stronger this lights by Yidden. So Davke is, und der Riber ist Davke b'deiros achrein in Niskala und Nispashen gewann der Minik von Limzig, Kesech and Yesem and Amsubim, the Keren Nesek, Kesech Elio. That's why Davke in the later generation, when we're close to Mashiach, this Minik was revealed and spread out that we pour one cup more than the Mesubim, more than the people, extra to what all the people want, and one for all, and we call it Kesech Elio Anavi. Chotschas in the Friedrich Deiras gefindt man nicht wegen dem Begillig. Even though that in the previous generation we don't find it revealed way. Maybe some people did it. They had the Inyonim, they knew it, but we don't find that people did it. And this is, the Rebbe says, Case Echot. It's one cause. So is the Inyon of Agdes, I guess. And another point that I will make soon in the word Echot, but one, and is Yesem Mikol Mesubim. It's more than all the Mesubim. That's in other words on top, which means that it's one cup that they have. And that is something more than what the Mesubim have. Now the Rebbe continues on the different word here. This explains also the Loshan Dal Rebbe Limze Kos Echot Yesem Mesubim. There's one cause more than the Mesubim, which means the meter that Al Rebbe Marames, Al Rebbe hints. There are a lot of Mesubim, a lot of people sitting by the Seder. And he is one in addition to them. What does that mean? Is in addition to them? He's part of them. He's one more to the Mesubim. Imagine that by pouring the cause, what happens is Elio is invited, he becomes part of the Mesubim. That's what the Alter Rebbe says, Yesem Mesubim, as if he is in addition to the Mesubim. While the Emunah von Yidden B'Leil Zeh, because the Emunah of Yidden at this night, Laila Shenigla Aleya Melech Malcham HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'Kvei B'Atzman, the night that Hashem revealed himself, Hashem, the King of Kings, himself, B'Kvei B'Atzman, revealed himself, U'Vachakum the Goloi B'Gashmias, and he comes, Poshet, the Gashmias, Kais V'Yayin. We give him a cup, we give him wine. Those Gufa, this the munah that the Yid has that this is happening this night, bring to his Me'erer as El Yohanov, as Gifina Bayan Seder, brings that El Yohanov should find himself by every Seder, Al Tziyesem and Mesubim, as being together with the Mesubim, but more than them. In other words, in addition to them, even more than them. But at the same time, steht sein Kost zusammen. He's talking over the Mesubim, over the people. But together with that, his cup is together with them. It's on the same table with the cost of all the people. Echad min Mesubim. He's called one of the Mesubim. He's more than the Mesubim. He's one. In other words, he's the higher level, but he's part of the Mesubim, and he's one of the people. So that's another dig. Before that, I ever said Keis Echad, and I said it means one. It's a Achdus, and it's more, meaning more than them. But now he says he's more than them, but he's together with them. And that comes because you have the Munah. And that is something we, in Gemara's time, we didn't have it because the Gilui of this Munah that we have is more closer when it gets closer to Mashiach. That's why we have that. So the Inyan of Kesach Chamishi and the Kesach Elio are two separate Inyanim, and the Rebbe explains the different dinim and different things, al between the two, Kesach Chamishi and Kesach Elio.